I have made the decision by dealing with this matter. I've declared a conflict of interest and will be leaving the room while this matter is discussed and voted on.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any other councillors?
Thanks, Mr Chair. Similar to Councillor Taylor, I'll raise a perceived conflict of interest in relation to 16.2.1, which is the Fraser Coast Sports Precinct Clubhouse tender. I'll raise and I'll inform the room that, as I have in the past, I probably don't need to raise it, but I'll do it in caution, that in past meetings I've declared that I've been a past president of Football Maryborough, played football, which is a fantastic sport, but for several clubs, which therefore you're members of the clubs, and also sat on the Football Wide Bay Committee. I'm no longer in these positions, nor have played for a couple of years, and don't believe I have a conflict, real or perceived, but I'll raise it just for the room to do that. And I intend to stay in the room, Mr Chair, and make a decision on this matter.
Mr Chair, this brings the first time we've had to actually discuss this issue, is that I have declared a conflict, and therefore, in determining someone else's conflict on the same matter, Councillor Lewis, I believe that I shouldn't vote on this also, but there was some confusion around that.
The advice we had in a recent briefing, and I believe that the new, the proposed model rules will reflect this, is that if it's a different conflict, then each can vote on the issue for the other. If you were both on the board of Football Queensland Wide Bay, that might be the same conflict, and that would make a difference. But in this instance, even though it's a conflict relating to the same subject matter, it's a different conflict, and as I understand the department's position, you can vote for Councillor Sanderson's issue.
It relates to the exact same body. He was a member of Football Queensland Wide Bay. He's no longer. That's what he's saying is perceived. I am a member of Football Queensland Wide Bay. So in fact, it is the same conflict on the same entity of the same issue. So I'm going to leave the room.
Rightio, councillors. So we're seeking a motion that Councillor Sanderson doesn't have a conflict and can stay in the room to vote on the matter.
No, you've got to do it in two parts.
Yes. So the first one, that he has no conflict, and then part two. Also, we should be voting on this one first.
If there's no conflict, you don't need to do part two because there is no conflict.
Sorry, Councillor Chapman.
So just for clarification, Councillor Sanderson isn't a member of any organisation and doesn't play soccer at the moment. So for clarification, that's the two things we look at. Thank you.
Rightio. So is there a... So we're moving a motion that there's no conflict. So can I have a mover? So Councillor Truscott, Councillor Lewis. All those in favour? So carried. Staying in the room. Rightio. These new rules. Whew. Rightio.
Jail time.
Yeah. Item 4 is mayoral minutes. We don't have a mayoral minute, and we don't have a mayor at the moment, so there's nothing there. Item 5 is confirmation of minutes from the ordinary meeting 8/18 on the 22nd of August on pages 5 to 18. If I can have a mover and a seconder. That is a true and correct version. Councillor. Yep, so Councillor Light, Councillor Madden. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 6 is addresses and presentations. So 6.1, public participation summary, please, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Mr Acting Mayor. I wasn't quite ready. We had 1, 2, four people that participated in public participation this morning. The first person was Ms Janice Gullock. She raised concerns regarding traffic at the intersection of Walkers Road, Boundary Road and Burrell Road. She felt that it was a dangerous intersection and needed to be looked at. The second person that participated was a Mr Dennis Sage. He congratulated the council on the library service and felt it was the best he's ever experienced, but he also raised concerns on behalf of Yarrowleigh Circuit residents, particularly with respect to Drury Lane. He wanted an update on progress, and he wanted consultation with residents regarding plantings and something done to suppress the dust. And finally, in closing, he also asked for clarification on the council's power to levy rates in advance and charge 9% interest after the due date. The next participant was Mr Graham Woad. He raised a number of general matters and issues, including clean-ups, Australia Day Awards, Point Lookout Platform, owner-occupier rating, the Leamington Bridge flood and the Leamington Bridge flood cameras. And the final participant, Mr Acting Mayor, was Mr Phil Wacer. And he was concerned about the increase of 28.1% in his waste charges at his townhouse and asked the council to consider its waste policy with respect to waste charges. That was the public participation.
So we just received
Mover and
If I can have a mover of that one, it's Councillor Sanderson, and the seconder, Councillor Light. Yep. So all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Deputations. This morning we're joined by Michelle and Elaine from the Hervey Bay Seafood Festival. So where are we going to... Councillor Sanderson, can you just pop over this way? Ladies, can you come and sit over next to Councillor Chapman? Yeah, just want to jump over this way, Daniel. Thanks, Daniel. Apologies for George, he's organised this. So, ladies, congratulations again on another very successful seafood festival this year. Well done again for all your hard work and effort, and over to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to address council. I'm a bit overwhelmed that it's a deputation. We were just coming for a little chat. But thank you anyway. To introduce ourselves to people who don't know us, I'm Elaine Luthwaite.
I'm Michelle Fox.
And we are from Hervey Bay Seafood Incorporated, the organisers of the Hervey Bay Seafood Festival. And we'd like to just share some good news, this being our 20th year. So we thought we'd pop one up here. The 2018 festival that was held on August 12 is widely regarded as the best ever festival that we have staged since it began in 1998 as a little exercise in public relations. The festival was opened this year by the Honourable Mark Ferner, Minister for Agricultural Development and Fisheries, who also launched Wide Bay Wildcatch, the regional promotional brand that the seafood industry is putting together for this region from Double Island Point to Bundaberg. The Hervey Bay Seafood Festival's national profile as the best seafood festival in Australia is delivering benefits across the community, not just for the seafood industry. It's enhancing Hervey Bay's reputation as seafood as being clean and sustainable, so bringing benefits year round. But make no mistake, this unique event happens in this region because there is a resident seafood industry with a diverse range of seafood from our waters and a very strong commitment from fishing families and volunteers from across our community, and indeed from across our state. They come to Hervey Bay to volunteer for this festival. So a bit of background on the festival, where it is, what its home is. Its home, since October 1998, is Fisherman's Park in Urangan Harbour, at Urangan Harbour. This area is regarded as the birthplace of the seafood industry on the Fraser coast. For 150 years, fish has been brought ashore there for the community, and for centuries as a meeting place for the bachelor to gather and feast on seafood. So in this competitive world of foodie events, this is certainly a point of difference and makes the Seafood Festival unique. So, and that's a really strong point in the world of events. So let's look at 2018, that's what we're here to talk about. The responses from the Hague's Jewellers Lucky Gate Prize and the festival survey has provided us with some amazing data, but it's not unexpected. While we don't have a formal economic evaluation, you know, the dollar value of it, the stats that we have gathered gives a picture of economic value to the region from this one-day event. So what we know about our people: 8,600 people attended the festival. They were families, with a significant portion in the 50-plus age group. 52% of these people travelled to the bay for the event. 37% were intrastate visitors, mostly that 400-kilometre drive market, a lot from in the Brisbane to Gympie area. And again from the Bundaberg region, even though there's a seafood-orientated event in Bundaberg 2 weeks after ours, the people are still travelling to come to it. 13% of the people came from interstate, predominantly from the East Coast, right to Tasmania. And overseas, we had visitors from New Zealand, Germany, USA, even had bookings for Taste of the Bay direct from Dubai. We sort of thought that was a bit of a misprint when it came through, but it certainly wasn't. The local residents made up the other 48%. In the accommodation world, 35% of these visitors stayed one night or longer. Some of them stayed really long times. They stayed with family and in all types of accommodation. With the capacity bookings, it was like the inn was full in Hervey Bay that week. The festival is definitely influencing the travel plans of the winter caravanners and the travellers. The other attractions visited, this may not be the best news for everybody. Most survey respondents only attended the Seafood Festival. The satisfaction level was high. 70% of the people surveyed indicate yes, they will return. Only 5 said no. So we've got a whole heap of maybes there, which we will convert over. How they heard about the festival. We use both social and mainstream media. The most powerful communication method was word of mouth. Facebook and then television came in third. What they liked best was the local seafood, shady trees and the atmosphere. What they want in 2019, now we're getting to the good part, they want lots more seafood, more chairs because people are 50 plus and it's easy to get on the ground, you can't get up. And level turf, level ground. So looking ahead from this, what has been in 2018, we've got a busy year ahead for our volunteers and our sponsors. Already a significant lot of inquiries online, return bookings. We've got people wanting to book lunch already, haven't even found a menu yet. The Wide Bay Wildcatch Regional Seafood website is, I think it goes live this week, and the promotion of a lot of businesses will be included in that promotion. And then we have the Fisherman's Park Mule project that is just beginning. We are involved in that as well. So all that in perspective, what we will be looking for in 2019 is increased support from Council to help us make this continually the best seafood festival in Australia, and even more people know about our seafood and our town and our region and all the other attributes. We would welcome a meeting with Council in the near future, and yes, we do have a wish list. It's just just a little one. So we would welcome that in the near future in time for our planning for 2019. Also at the 20-year mark, we would like to say a few thank yous to people. To thank all the councils that we've worked with in the 20 years to bring this event to what it is, and to our sponsors. We also want to acknowledge some of our fellow travellers on this journey since day one. Shane Rose and Marty Price and their parks crew love their work. They're always helpful, they're always supportive, ever ready to pump out a drain, shovel some cracker dust, minute. And then we have the waste management team who are there, they come in, they take it all away after we've made a big mess, they're great. And to Ken, our CEO, much appreciated for your support and your belief in the event. So in closing, thank you and look forward to seeing everyone on August the 11th, 2019.
Can we get a copy of that?
You may, you may.
It's-
A lot of hard work there.
It'll come at a cost, Stuart.
Labour of love, labour of love. Okay, should we leave now? We've never
More-
sat at
look-
this table before.
Yeah, if councillors, if there's any questions for the ladies before they depart? But, no, we'll
Rob's
organise that.
sending
meeting.
us an email. Good.
So if we can just get it.
Yeah.
You want to leave that copy with
No. No, what we'll do is we will send you over a formal copy of it and we'll email it to all the councillors, the mayor, and of course Ken will have a copy. So thank you, and it was a great day for Harvey Bay.
It was, thanks for your efforts.
Thank you.
Look forward to it next year. Just give me a bit more notice on them surprises requests though, Michelle.
You worked well under pressure.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you.
Council staff work well. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Item 8, petitions. Councillors, any councillors in receipt of a petition? Councillor Taylor.
Is this on? Mr Chair, thank you for... I have a petition here. The chief petitioner is Rodney Thode. It's a petition with 212 signatures on it. The nature of the petition is the construction of a footpath from Queen's Road to McNally Street, Boat Harbour Drive, Scarness. It's a compliant petition and I seek to table it and refer it to the CEO for his consideration. Yeah, we do, yep.
Yeah. So can I get a move? Councillor Taylor will move that one. Yep. And a seconder for that one. Councillor Truscott. All those in favour? Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
Yes, thanks, Mr Acting Mayor. I have a petition in relation to a development application for a material change of use for the premises at 106 to 126 Murphy Street, Point Vernon. The principal petitioner is a Paul Fernley of 4 Seabreeze Lane, Point Vernon, and there are 20 signatories on it. The substance of the petition is to oppose the application, which is to, in effect, to rezone the subject property from, I think it's a retail or local shopping, to residential. Their argument in brief is that while the applicant is submitting that there is no need for shopping in that area, they're saying that there's a substantial residential community and residential growth in the area, with 300 housing lots in Martin Street under construction and 120 approved for Dugan Street, which is only 500 metres from the proposed development, and other developments in the general area. Their argument is therefore that there will be a requirement for a shopping zone. So I seek to table that for attention in the usual way. And I move accordingly.
Oh, can I get a seconder for this motion? Councillor Truscott. Right, how councillors? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Rightio, item 9 is the 9.1 is the report of the Audit Committee for 2017-2018, and Councillor Taylor.
No, sorry, still another.
Yep, I'd like to table a petition with 531 signatures. The chief petitioner is Brodie Hamilton, and the nature of the petition states that we, the undersigned, wish to make a submission to the Fraser Coast Regional Council in support of the proposed changes to the existing Urangan Medical Centre complex as set out in the development application reference MCU 18-0054. The Urangan locality will benefit from the increased service capacity of the medical centre, and we implore Council to approve the application is lodged. I seek to table this petition and refer it to the CEO for consideration and move that it be tabled.
Can I get a seconder for this? Yep, Councillor Light. So all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Right, yeah, sorry about that, Zane. Any more petitions, councillors? No, all good? Right, yeah, 9.1, report of the Audit Committee for 2017-2019. Oh, sorry, yeah, it doesn't say that. Oh, it says it on this, but not on that one. Yeah, Audit Committee meeting minutes.
Mr Chair, I have a procedural motion that is related to item 9.1, which is the Audit Committee meeting minutes, but also item number 15.6 in confidential. And I refer to, it is a procedural motion. It refers to the report of the Audit Committee for 2017-18, which has been placed into confidential. The procedural motion is that that matter be moved from confidential and placed into the general meeting, and I'd seek to table it as part of this, so it would effectively form 9.2 of this agenda. And as it's a procedural motion, I don't believe I need a seconder, but I'd be seeking a vote that this be moved out of confidential. It rightfully should be in general meeting.
All those in favour of Councillor Taylor's motion? Carried unanimously.
In that case, I seek to table the item 15.6 and to be referred to as item 9.2.
Yeah, just to confuse it. So 15.6 is now 9.2? Yeah, we'll deal with 9.1, which is the Audit Committee meeting minutes, which is on page 19 with the officer's recommendation on page 19. So can I get a mover and a seconder for that one, please? Councillor Matt. Rightio. God, this is getting complicated. So Councillor Madden?
I'll second that.
Yep. Councillor Taylor? Rightio. Councillor Madden, any comment? No. Right, Councillor Taylor. Right. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Rightio. 9.2, which was 16.468. Yeah.
Mr Acting Mayor, we also have the Council's external auditor, Michael Parkinson, present, who has requested to talk to his report if we can get leave of the Council.
Councillors, do we have...
No, it's
No,
just the mayor.
yeah, just the mayor. Oh, yeah, no worries at all. I forgot I'm the acting mayor. Michael, do you want to join us down the front? Yeah. Oh, is there a microphone just there? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor.
So welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Over to you.
Mr Deputy Mayor and Councillors, I have great pleasure in presenting to you the annual report of the Fraser Coast Council's Audit Committee for 2017-18. By way of background, the Audit Committee is established under the Local Government Act to help the Council manage its risks. It's under the Act, its primary responsibility is towards financial risks and the financial statements, but this Council has elected to extend its coverage to a broad range of risks that face the Council, so our job is effectively to help you manage the risks that the Council as a whole faces. It's constituted with 2 councillors and 3 external members. The 3 external members cover a range of expertise in local government and finance, and we are at the process of, in fact, selecting a new representative as one has retired, and you'll probably hear more about that later. Considering the year in review, it's been a pretty high-profile year for local government in Queensland, and I don't think you need me to tell you that. As an audit committee, we've taken those sorts of things into account. We've also, of course, taken into account the turmoil that this council itself faced about 12 months ago. We have, because of this turmoil, focused a fair bit of our effort on financial vulnerability. Just on 12 months ago, the Queensland Audit Office tabled a report which corresponded with a number of reports that had come out of internal audit that pointed out vulnerability in purchasing and procurement. The faults were across use of delegations, they were across IT access, they were across documentation and transparency in general terms. Since that time, the performance of council and council administration has improved remarkably. That we continue to keep our eye on it, but there has been significant improvement in the way things are operating. I also need to commend the councillors for their own transparency in actions in dealing with community and with the council as businessmen within the community. As a committee, we seek information from management and staff. We seek information from the internal and the external auditors. We use the routine reports of management where it's possible, and we commission reports where it's necessary. Also, as the chair, I spend a reasonable amount of time talking with the contracted external auditor from the Queensland Audit Office. I talk with the chief executive on a regular basis so that I can stay in touch with what's going on. During the year, we have received very good cooperation from all council staff. There has been no reason to question their transparency with us. And I think that's probably all I need to say in conclusion, except that if there are areas that you would like the Audit Committee to concentrate on, things of uncertainty for you, then I would like to hear about it so that we can direct our program accordingly.
Thank you, Michael. Councillor, is there any questions for Michael? Any comment?
Just in relation to page 473, and you touched on it there, and I just wanted some clarity because it obviously, as a council, we really try to make sure our conflict of interest and our register of interest forms are complete, and the other documentation that we have to fill out, which says the Audit Committee will concern that the initial reporting of such relationships of key management personnel and councillors was not complete. So that's in relation to our related parties, which is the other form that we have to complete. I'm not aware of any instance for myself, for example, where I've not my related parties is not complete. I was wondering if you could maybe expand on that to the level you can, because if it is a case that we haven't filled out our related parties, it would be good to know that and how we can remedy that issue.
Councillor, that referred to the declarations in the 2016-17 financial statements, so just on 12 months ago. The initial series of declarations covered only one person out of all the possible people who could be regarded as related parties. The committee felt that in a community the size of Fraser Coast, with a group of key management personnel and councillors who were so connected to the community as a whole, it was very unlikely that there was only one related party transaction in a 12-month period. We questioned that, and we subsequently received further advice from councillors about related party transactions, and we were satisfied with that. This year, the reporting appears to be more robust.
What you're saying is that has now been addressed and remedied?
It has, yes.
Sorry, Mr Acting Mayor, can I just make some comment to that as well, if that's okay? Sorry, Michael. It would be fair to say, however, Michael, that the actual report, when it was finished, did indicate all related parties at that particular time of reporting. Would that be correct?
That would be correct. Okay. Yeah, we were satisfied when the financial statements were signed in the end that we had a complete set of related parties. We, of course, can only be reasonably satisfied because we don't have absolute knowledge, but we were much more satisfied with the final response.
And just the other key note that I guess you made was in relation to purchasing and procurement. You talked about inappropriate exercise of delegations. Is there any scope that you could expand on that issue, or is it, I don't want it to be left to that degree where it could be taken as being, a higher level of inappropriate use as an inadvertent exercise. If I could ask for clarity on that.
I can provide you with some clarity on that. There were a number of instances noted where individuals exercised delegations that they did not hold. It was not necessarily done with malice, it was done through ignorance, but it's one of those things that you can't afford to have happen. On the other side of it, there were instances where delegates did not exercise delegations they did hold and referred it to their boss, and that was not necessarily helpful either. That people are given delegations for a reason. It's so that they can make decisions, and there are very few reasons why somebody would not exercise a delegation they hold, and it would only be if they felt that they had a conflict in the process that they should not do so. We believe that that has now been fixed. We have been looking at that this year as well.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just so I can just add to that, since that time, the delegations of all council staff have been reviewed, and as recently as this week, 2 weeks ago, the executive management team approved a draft procurement policy to address the issues that were raised during audit, and yesterday we met with the wider council management team to work through that procurement policy, and that procurement policy will be coming to council at its next meeting.
Councillors, no other comment? If not, rightio. So the recommendation.
Michael, yourself and your committee, I'd just like to thank you for the efforts that you've actually put in on behalf of the council, and it's great to see people overlooking and making it a better council. So thank you.
Mr Mayor, yes, so thank you, Councillor Chapman, for bringing that up. I'd also like to thank the committee. I have resigned from the committee. I served on it for the 4 years of the last term as the chair, and a number of years in this time. I think it was a time for me to move on and give it to someone else. But I'd like to congratulate Michael. Certainly, he's been an absolutely brilliant chair, much better job than I did, I can tell you. But no, really did a really great job as the chair, and I'd like to congratulate you and the rest of the team.
Rightio, thanks, Councillor Light. So yeah, we'll put this one to the vote. The motion that. Oh, sorry, sorry about that.
There was one other question. I was trying to find it now. It relates to how much we. You've put a note in there, and I'm trying to see what the author's intent is, I guess. 0.128% of expenditure. It would equate to $250,000 spent on auditing and compliance. Is that right? And what's your aspiration as far as I guess making that point in this document?
Our concern as a committee was that audit programs were approved and then were not able to be executed because of insufficient resources. The council has a couple of quite talented young people who are doing this work, but they are so talented they keep getting other work to do, which means that it effectively takes what would be internal audit expenditure and moves it off into other places. Now, while this may be a great response to surges in trouble, in the longer term, it's not good to take away your internal audit resource. My reason for putting this in the report was to keep Council's mind on the fact that this is an important function within the Council, and even when the talented young staff are taken off and done other things, they need to be backfilled perhaps by contractors to make sure that the program gets completed.
I guess what you're saying is at the next budget, the budget line should look more like 250,000 than the current number.
And that
Aware. Rightio, councillors, can I have a mover for this motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Light. Yep, Councillor Light. And a seconder? Councillor Taylor. Councillor Light, any comment? Councillor Taylor?
No. Only that,
Word.
Mr CEO, we talk about through the year, making sure that we place things at the current time to contemplate for the budget in due course so that staff are aware. I think this is a discussion that we need to have and need to have modelling of what the benchmarked budgeting would look like in a 2019-20 budget. So I just put that out on the table, that can we have a discussion around the budget and the audit committee budgeting lines to make sure that we can try and meet those benchmarks if possible.
Happy to do that, Mr Acting Mayor, Deputy Mayor.
Rightio, councillors, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, and thank you, Michael, for your efforts. We jump back to the first, the officers' reports, which is the Open Resolutions Register, 10.1.1 on pages 25 to 51, with a recommendation on page 25. So, councillors, any comment? Questions? Call for a mover of this, Councillor Light. A seconder? Councillor Madden? Yeah. Councillor Light, any comment? Councillor Madden? No. Right, all those in favour, councillors? Carried.
No questions.
No questions. That's the first time ever.
Everyone take note.
That's
the
first.
very first time you haven't asked a question of...
10.1.2 on page 52 is the organisational performance report for August 2018. The recommendation there is on page 52. Councillors, is there any comment on this one?
No, but I'm happy to move it.
Happy to move it? Rightio. So Councillor Madden has indicated she's happy to move this one. Can I please get a seconder? Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Madden, any comment?
I just love the new presentation.
You're talking about me or the report? Councillor
Well, the
O'Keefe.
report, of course.
No. Righto, we'll put this one to the vote. Councillor Lewis.
Thanks, Mr Acting Mayor. I was just going to comment that one of the drawbacks with bar charts, especially coloured bar charts, is that those with a touch of colour blindness have a slight issue with them. I guess we can get an approximation of the numbers from the scales on the side, but if I seek further information from time to time, that may well be the reason. Thanks.
Yeah.
We can look at the shading.
Right. So Councillor Madden's moving that one. Councillor O'Keefe, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. 10.2 is the org services again, which is a new lease for the Maryborough Caledonian Society. That's 10.2.1 with the from pages 67 to 70, with the officer's recommendation on 67 and 68. Councillors, any comment? Have a move. Councillor Truscott. Get a seconder, please. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Truscott, any comment? Councillors, if we get a vote on this one, please. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. That would be a conflict of interest. Rightio. On helicopters, thank you. Rightio, 10.3.1 is the community development. It's naming of council reserves, the boardwalk at Urangan, the footbridge in Pier Park, and the Yeronga Environmental Park in Urangan. In Tanana. Sorry. Yingara. Is that where it is? Yeah, righto. Nothing. The officer's recommendation there is on page 71. If I can have a move or any comment on that one? No? Yep, Councillor Hanson. Yeah, it's on the screen. Get a second to Councillor Chapman.
Just to clarify, what does it say?
Everyone's aware that the boardwalk at Urangan, that's the one from Boat Harbour Drive down to the Bowls Club there, is Trevor Cecil Boardwalk. The footbridge within Pier Park is Stevenson Matheson Footbridge. And the environmental park located at Tanana is the Bernie Perina Environmental Reserve. So all those in favour? Against? No, so it's carried unanimously. Rightio. Birds, rightio. So 10.3.2, migratory shorebirds and disturbance on the Fraser coast. Rightio, we have an officer's recommendation on page 82. Jamie, do you want to speak to this one? Any questions for the officers? Any questions first? Councillor Lewis? Right, yeah. Call for a move for this motion. Councillor Lewis? Yep. A seconder? A seconder, please. Councillor Light? Thank you. Councillor Lewis, you would like to speak to this one?
Yes, thanks, Mr Acting Mayor. Just a couple of things. One of the issues that this raises is the question of dog off-leash areas, and I know that can be controversial from time to time. I just so that everyone's aware of it, there will be a public consultation process because the changes to the dog off-leash areas and perhaps the prohibited dog areas will be effected through a local law review process. And just so that I mention that just simply so that the public is aware that there will be an opportunity for input in that process. Quite a bit of this plan will be something that's taken over quite a period of time, but importantly, we can start the awareness process now. We can look at signage and those sorts of issues from the get-go. I also just want to put on record my thanks to Cecile Espigol and Will Price, who are the two who gave a presentation to a council briefing some weeks ago. I've had the opportunity to go out with Cecile and Will and look at the O'Regan's Creek migratory area with the benefit of their telescopic devices so that you can look at them from 100 metres away where you're not disturbing them. It's terrific to see them, but that's the way they ought to be seen. While we were there, a young teenage lad wandered through on his way fishing, and we spoke to him later on. He was oblivious to the fact that he had disturbed migratory birds, and he was happy when it was pointed out to him that he would find a more circuitous route for his return journey. And in a sense, we can get that cooperation from the public. That'll make the task of the migratory birds much easier. They have a long way to fly, and they need to be able to rest up without leaping up into the air every time a fisher person or a dog wanders past. So my thanks to Will and Cecile, and I know that they've offered to take other councillors out to inspect the sites as well, of which there are, as you can see from the report, quite a number. So thanks, and thanks to the officers for their work on this particular and important project.
Can I seek some clarity on this? I don't believe that the recommendation as it's worded in relation to dog off leash areas is appropriate if it's going to go to public consultation. You can't have a resolution to alter the conditions of existing dog off leash areas. You can have a resolution to refer it to the local law review and then go through the public consultation and have an amendment to that local law for it to go out to public consultation and then have it considered as a separate motion. I'm not comfortable to have a resolution that says we will alter the conditions and then go out to public consultation. There's nothing in there that refers to that. So my view would be to refer it to the local law review, through to the local law review process for consideration, which would involve drafting of a local law or an amendment to a local law. It would include public consultation and then further decision from council.
So, Jamie, for a start.
Through the chair, could I suggest that point 1, we change the word alter to review? Review the conditions of existing dog off-leash areas. The current dog off-leash areas are designated in the conditions regarding their operation and contained within existing local law. The intent of this is that as part of the local law review, when we look at those existing designated areas and that we consider environmental issues, this will be one of, I would suggest, a number of different elements that will be considered, as well as obviously community input.
Yeah, I was going to suggest the same thing because Councillor Taylor's concern about the process and community consultation, I think, is captured as part of the recommendation. If it says review the conditions of the existing dog off-leash areas as well as the creation of new prohibited dog off-leash areas through the local law review process. And I think that word process, and that process clearly spells out the steps that must be taken before the council adopts a local law, including community consultation engagement. And
the same can be said for point 2. We can't declare the deliberate disturbance of shorebirds an offence under local law in areas under its control just by this resolution. It's got to go through a proper process.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Taylor, and I apologise, I should have picked this up. We can't arbitrarily declare something an offence under a local law. It has to go through a process. So that recommendation should be altered as well, and it may be to consider the deliberate disturbance of shorebirds as an offence under the local, as part of a local law review process. I apologise to the chamber.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes, both of those amendments are fine by me.
Can I just point out, and this is a separate matter, but the third point is a budget matter. And we haven't got any feedback on the cost of, every time we talk about increasing patrols, the same thing is we don't have it within our budget. We've now got an increased compliance and control near shorebird roost areas, and that's assuming that we have a local law that will progress, that they can do some level of compliance on. And once again, anything to do with a local law or compliance around a local law has to follow a proper process, and where the other ones, yeah. There's 3 there that really need to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for raising that matter, Councillor Stewart. I'm quite comfortable that item 3 doesn't actually involve budget amendments or doesn't have budget implications. When we talk about compliance patrols, we're talking about the functional group within council, not compliance with the local law that does not yet exist. And I see this as an operational issue where from time to time we have varying focus on different things. Some months it might be on dogs, it might be on roosters, and I see this as just an operational focus that we would place, which wouldn't necessarily involve additional staff or resources. It'd just be a focus with the existing resources we have on hand, and I'd maybe refer to the Acting Director of Development Community to talk further on that if needed.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd like to concur with the CEO. The intent of this, we already carry out patrols in certain areas, and we'll be visiting those areas as part of normal general business. At present, we're not looking at the shorebird areas. It will just ensure that there's an emphasis placed during that time that if people are in the area, in conjunction with their existing visitations, not as a special to ensure that we actually have a look at those areas while we're there.
Can I ask a question? What compliance will the patrols address in relation to shorebirds? So what are you going to direct or tell the community if they're in a off-leash area, walking a dog in an off-leash area? What compliance are you going to undertake?
Through the chair, Councillor, I believe that would be the outcome of points 1 and 2. So the review of the local law will consider what elements are considered to be disturbance or not, and then whether or not people are complying with them. So I would leave that until such time as we've actually developed a local law and we've set what are the rules and regulations around and the level of rule and regulation that council wishes at that point in time to put in place, and then the compliance will be directly related.
So we've got a council resolution that asks an increased compliance patrols around areas starting from September, which is now through to March, before we have a local law in place, or whether we are going to have that local law in place. I again say, starting this month, what compliance, what increase in compliance will be undertaken this September, this October, November and December, that's going to require that increased level of patrol?
Councillor, it would be limited to our current laws and how people are maintaining or looking after their animals that are in that place. That would be the limit of our existing local law pertaining to this.
Mr. Through the chair, it can also include awareness, raising awareness with people in those areas of the impact that their activities have in disturbing migratory and
there's a difference
education.
between educational strategies and compliance.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate that the recommendation says compliance patrols, and it sort of infers that it's actually compliance around local laws, where I probably read it differently, that it's the compliance team.
Well, if you're looking at this as the author has written, that we've altered the local law in relation to off-leash areas. We've made it an offence to disturb a shoreline bird, shorebirds, and now we're increasing compliance. Those three things would indicate that, one, we're going to have our local laws changed, and two, that we're going to start issuing fines and holding people to account in relation to point 1 and 2. And my point is that is not an appropriate way to deal with local laws.
Councillor Hanson, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in relation to point 3 there as well, the increased patrols, would that include after-hour patrols or just business hour patrols?
Through the chair, it would only be in conjunction with normal business at present and in accordance with existing laws. The other element of compliance and patrols that council can also pass on information to state agencies. We're also dealing with areas there, and some of these are located within marine parks, or all located within marine parks and conservation zones. There's a multitude of other things that may be occurring there that council, in conjunction with the state, who do have authority in these areas, to ensure that there's a bit high increase of awareness and respect for the shorebird areas.
And I'm not trying to be indifferent, but I don't see how you can have point 3 without first addressing point 1 and 2. I don't see firstly the need. There's other ways to do educational programs, and patrols is not one of them in my view in the first instance. I would be seeking to amend point 1 to state review the conditions, point 2 to consider, and at this stage remove point 3, because you can add that in once you've addressed your local laws, not before. So it'd be as simple as removing point 3, and then it would read there'd be 7 points to be discussed.
Look, if I could, just a question to the Acting Director. If we deleted clause 3, that presumably doesn't impact at all on the officer's operational decision to send compliance officers to those areas within the normal current parameters to talk to people, to assess the extent of the problem and so on. Is that a reasonable summary of it?
That's right.
In that case, would be no issue with deleting point 3 to make sure that we're not giving, that the intention of this chamber is clear as to how we want our local law to be pursued.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure who I'm addressing quite, but right, thank you. Look, as the mover of the motion, I'm happy to take 3 out and renumber accordingly. One other change, though, that I'd like to make, I think 2 reads a bit ambiguously. I think it should read, consider declaring the deliberate disturbance, etc. As it insert the word declaring after consider, because otherwise consider the disturbance an offence might mean that we take the view that, but what we're doing is considering the declaration of. So consider declaring would be how I'd like to move that.
Can we ensure that there is, in relation to the dog off-leash areas, just to make sure that the local law review process, which we do know has public participation, that we put in point 2 a reference to public consultation? And I guess point 1 and 2 would have some level of public consultation. I mean, that's what you indicated in your statement, so I just thought it'd be appropriate to be placed in there.
I have no problem with it. I thought it was part of the automatic process, but I have no issue with putting it in if you want to do, if you'd feel more comfortable, that's fine by me.
Just through the chair, it is part of the legislative process to do public consultation, up to the mover whether he wants to include that specifically.
So it's good with the mover and the seconder? Rightio. Rightio, Councillor Lewis, have you got any further comment on your...
No.
No.
Thank you. Just looking at the actual resolution that's drafted, it doesn't make sense when it says in line with. Okay, it's being fixed. Yeah. Okay.
Welcome back, George. Councillor Light, have you got any comment? All good? Last chance, Councillor Lewis. So the motion, as per up on the screen, do we need to read it all out, or are we good with it? All good? Righto. So all those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Over to you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Everard, and I apologise for my tardiness in arriving and missing public participation. I've been out whale watching with the Sunrise weather team, which was a fantastic event organised by FCTE. Over the last few months, we've had a lot of really high-profile visits, including the Premier and former Prime Minister came to Maryborough. We had the entire State of Origin team. Today, we had the national media attention, and next month, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. These type of visits really put us on the national and international stage and promote tourism and the region. So I really want to thank FCTE for what they've done today in organising Sunrise. We had 7 live crosses. Every single one, we were right beside whales breaching, and it was an amazing experience. I'm sorry to be here, but we came back as quick as we could. We did multiple live broadcasts right across the country from out, and I want to thank Tasman Venture, the amazing crew, a group of people doing good stuff. Okay, and thank you to the Deputy Mayor for chairing the meeting in my absence. I always have complete confidence. Okay, 10.3.3, Parks Infrastructure and Enhancement Plans for Council Adoption. That's page 88 to page 111. Now, there is the recommended resolution covers over pages 88 to 89. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Madden, seconded Councillor Light. Are there any questions? Did you want to speak to?
Just to say thank you to the council staff for their patience. If you have a look at the Tyro recommendation list, it's quite extensive. We had some quite significant meetings out there. I appreciate very much the staff time that was involved. I know the community do too, and I have a big thing about community consultation. This was really well done in the sense that the community were very closely consulted on this, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Light? No. Councillor Sanderson?
I just want to add, similar to Councillor Madden's comments, just congratulate the Acting Director and their staff and the CEO for what they've done here. I totally agree. Fantastic process with the community. It is exciting to see, you know, everything captured in all these plans across the region for the parks. And as we all know, parks are a fantastic place for all families and individuals across the Fraser Coast, and to be able to grow them and allow the community to actually master plan them, not just council, is fantastic. So well done, Jamie and the team, and I look forward to hopefully seeing what's been put forward to happen.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? It's carried unanimously. The next item, 10.3.4, has been removed from the agenda. 10.3.
Resolution that it be held over, Mr Mayor.
Do we need that? Or so is that,
Yeah,
okay.
because it's actually on the agenda.
Yeah, so Councillor Everard is moving that it be laid on the table. What's the resolution needs for that?
It can lay on the table or it can be held over to the next meeting.
Which would be, which works better on the planning, from planning side? Okay, you have to move that lay on the table?
Yep.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Lewis, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? It's carried unanimously. The next item is 10.3.5, an application to reconfigure a lot 1 into 34 lots. That's pages 153 to 193.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that with amendments, please.
Well, do you want to speak about your amendments, and then we'll see if there's a seconder?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I wish to, I forwarded to our Secretary and also to all councillors the amendments. To speak to the amendments, which is to maintain a consistent road width, which is in interest in common through that whole development area. It is park residential. Yes, I do live in that general area. I don't believe there's any conflict of interest in the sense that this is a very nice area close to the beach, and it has road widths that are, can we say, contributing to good outcomes for the community. As you know, in this chamber, I've criticised the smaller road widths and how social impacts can occur from that. So, Mr Mayor, do you want me to read out the actual amendments?
Yes, so you're amending section 34
condition
and
34.
Yeah, can you just speak to those two conditions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. 35, amend a point to read, construct the new internal roads to an urban local access standard with a 17-metre wide road reserve and a 7.5 metre wide pavement. Condition 35, amend to read the following. Construction of Semps Road to a major collector standard. In this regards, the developer shall provide a park road construction, minimum 7.5 metre pavement in brackets, with the balance being construction in coordination with adjoining future developments.
Okay, so does everyone understand the two conditions that he's... Is there a seconder for that?
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Well, if there's a seconder, perhaps we can move...
Well, maybe it might change his decision to second it.
All right.
I'm just, can I ask from the planning staff, does the wording that's been provided comply with the requirements under the Act and under your obligations? Like, is there any wording that's incorrect, or is it wording that is suitable for conditions?
And through the chair, yeah, the wording is correct. It's consistent with our standard drawings and road types for the widths and sizes that are there. The key components are the major collector standard and the urban access standard. Not only refer, whilst we're changing the widths in this scenario. And that standard also relates directly to pavement construction standard, so the actual type of pavement required for the type of use. The amendments here change the width of that such that it's consistent with what is the existing urban fabric.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Chapman? Yes, Councillor Mattern.
Could I just ask a question, please? So the way that I'm reading condition 35 is that the developer will still be required to construct the 7.5 metre pavement, but the balance of that will be either from infrastructure charges or from other. Yeah, so basically, I guess what I'm saying is that the developer is not in any way financially impacted by this change to the resolution.
Through the chair, the internal roads, it's basically setting a standard. For the purposes of Semps Road is an existing road reserve that adjoins the property to the south. Semps Road also provides interconnection through to the Leader development and has land directly to the south adjoining it. This particular condition in 35A will provide for their frontage. So this development, when you have a look at the plan, it on page 185, you will see that they have lots fronting Semps Road. So this will provide a standard of 7.5 metre seal which will service those lots. The balance of the road will be constructed either when, one, the land to the south is developed in accordance with the structure plan, or alternatively, the interconnection is required when a stage of the Leader development it comes online at some stage in the future, knowing that the Leader development has a preliminary approval from Council for Urban Development.
So those
Yeah, it would, yeah.
Yeah.
those extra costs then
I think
refer
people know
to
that, but if you want.
future development as opposed to the current
Unless
one.
they don't, so
Yep.
I think people understand, yeah. Sorry, yeah, Councillor Lewis?
We're just seeking a clarification. As I'm reading it at page 179 of the agenda, it's 36A that's being amended, not 35. Is it correct? Yeah, that's correct. And does any of this impact 35, which talks about the dedications of a 6 metre 3-chord truncation at the intersections?
179. Yeah, I was going to ask, there is no 35A, yeah, so it's 36A. And 34,
Yeah, through the chair. May
Yes.
need new glasses. Correct, 36A, not
Yep.
35A.
so, yeah. And going back to 34, what happens to the condition about the cul-de-sac? Is that not necessary if you change the width of the road? Well, 34B talks about providing a cul-de-sac turning facilities,
yeah.
and that's no longer in the new 34.
Sorry, the amendment was only to amend point A. Point B still remains. The cul-de-sac still required.
Okay,
So
well,
both
we
the
need to
amendments, through the chair, both the amendments pertaining to condition 34 and 36 are only amendments to point A of both of those conditions. There's still a requirement for a cul-de-sac to be provided at any turning points. Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Lewis?
Mr Mayor, yes, the second part of my question was whether any consequential amendments required to 35, which talks about the 6 metre 3-chord truncations to be dedicated at the intersections. Is it still a 6 metre truncation?
That's correct, Councillor.
Were there any further questions on this matter? Yeah, Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, I'd like to, as I second this motion, I'd like to support what Councillor Light's brought up here. We are finding that the narrow roads in developments is a lot harder to get around. People are parking on the side of the road. People have got to try and get past them. And when you have a look at this site, there is room to make these roads bigger, but it's to make a better estate out of it. And this is something that our planning department are looking at, but it hasn't come up yet. But we are looking at the future of putting in wider roads. So I really think that we've got a great opportunity here to fix something that we feel that that has been proven that it is a problem down the track with narrow roads, as we see out further from this area. And I really feel that this is a step towards the right direction of making sure that when we are doing development, we're trying to do it properly. And for the little bit of cost is you'll get a better result and you get a better return. And with this estate, just looking at the plan, there's a great opportunity for us to move forward with this. So I do support Councillor Light's request here and his amendment, and I think it's it's common sense. Thank you.
So before we proceed to a vote, I'll just be clear, we're not just voting on the amendment. This is the motion. So we've discussed the amendment. So when we put the motion, it'll be for the approval, the entire approval. Were there any further questions? Yes, Councillor Lewis?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to ask the officers whether that will impact, and is it a problem if it impacts on the size of the allotments, given that the general tenor of it seems to be to keep them at 2,000 square metres minimum. So will the extra road width come off those allotments or come off the public use area, or a bit of each? And do the officers have any comment on the desirability of that in terms of the overall amenity of the development?
Through the chair, there will be a need, obviously, to change the lot sizes. It won't come off the open space. The open space has been agreed to as part of conditions and referral, and particularly through this state referral. And so the difference it will make is very minimal, and that would be acceptable to get the road. So if they were 1,997 square metres or 1,990, that still would be accepted.
Are there any further questions or speakers? Councillor Light, did you want to speak to your motion?
No, Mr Mayor, I think it's enough been said.
Thanks. Okay, I'll put the motion, which is as per the agenda, but with those two amendments. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. The next item is item 10.3.6, the material change of use at 2 Tony Street and 97 Hammond Street, Urangan, page 194 to 243.
I can move that recommendation.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, councillors. Yeah.
Because I'm in again.
So are you?
Because I want to flag an amendment if I don't get to
Yeah,
move.
so it might be easy if I move it, and then I think a number of people have amendments. And
Okay. Is there a seconder for the amendment as a recommendation? May lapse. If there's no seconder, the motion lapses.
We're looking for a seconder for the.
Councillor Lewis is seconding the officer's recommendation. Yep. Did you indicate that you'll be?
That I would like to flag an amendment.
Yep. And what will that amendment be?
So I have sent an email around to all councillors. It's in relation to condition 56, which is the hours of trading, and to amend that to read, restrict the hours of operation of the healthcare service use to 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday, and work or business carried out from the premises outside the above hours must be for emergency or on-call requirements only.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that?
No, seek the, if it's
Oh, yeah. Is that?
I'm aware that another person is looking, another councillor is looking at an alternate time, so I'm happy to. Councillor Lewis, were you also considering a different amendment to that time?
Mr Chair, yes, I was. I was aware of Councillor Madden's proposed amendment. I was contemplating I suppose, a compromise, which would be a Monday to Friday to 7:30 p.m. So that there's some. Well, I won't speak for the reasons. We'll deal with that later. But that was my contemplated amendment.
Yeah, you got standing orders for multiple amendments. Yeah, we'll see. First of all, are any of the amendments that have been proposed so far?
I think a compromise in 7:30 is the most appropriate course. And I'd be happy to amend it to those times in seeking to try to get the majority of councillors to support it.
Okay, and then we'll have to test the amendment of Councillor Madden's. CEO wishes to.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Madden moved her amendment first, so that should be considered in the order that it's moved. Normally, where the mover and seconder are both happy to incorporate the amendment because it's not a substantial change, then that can occur. But if the mover and the seconder do not aren't able to are agreeable to amend their motion, then the matter really needs to go to a seconder and then be put to the vote.
Through the chair, is Councillor Madden willing to have her amendment reflect the times of Councillor Lewis's? And maybe that's the
And the answer is no.
okay, then it goes to the vote.
So it require a seconder?
Yes. Is there a seconder for the 5 p.m. amendment? Is there a point of order, Councillor?
Yes, just a point of order.
Yes.
I mean, my proposed amendment was 7:30, which is acceptable to the mover of the motion. And since I was the seconder of the motion, it's also acceptable to me, so that would become, in my view, the motion, but of course subject to dealing with Councillor Madden's amendment. Is that, are we all on the same page?
That's correct,
Yeah, so as it stands, the times are now 7:30, as indicated. Yeah.
Yep.
And we only have one amendment that's being considered.
Well, I believe that you have to consider it in the order that there was a mover and a seconder, and then Councillor Madden moved an amendment. That needs to be considered, and then Councillor Lewis can, with your consent as the mover, amend the hours. I think we need to follow a process.
Only that, as the mover of a recommendation, I can alter the recommendation as the mover to reflect the time that's more appropriate.
Once you have a mover and a seconder, the motion is on the
recommendation
table.
is the recommendation. I have the resolution now, so the times, the amendment.
So my understanding, once you have a mover and a seconder, the motion is on the table. You can amend it following the process, but in terms of amending it, you should follow the order that the amendments were raised. So there's a mover, you moved it, David has seconded it, Anne has suggested an amendment.
I think we're going to go to vote.
Really, it's 17.10 of the standing orders, where an amendment to a motion is put before a meeting of the council, and there may be some debate about whether it's been put without a seconder. No other amendment to the motion will be considered until after the first amendment has been determined. However, a councillor may foreshadow an alternate motion. So,
So I moved an amendment. You didn't, no one, as far as I call for a seconder.
There's no seconder, it lapses.
yeah, seconded. Yes, so there is a seconder to Councillor Madden's amendment to the motion.
So now you need Councillor Madden to talk to amendment and then discuss the amendment, and then that becomes the motion, and then there could be a full
Yes, yes. Councillor Everard has a question.
Practitioner numbers.
Oh, before that, so you didn't have a question about the process?
No, not about the process, but about the...
Okay, can we just hang on?
You need to talk to the motion, the amended motion first.
Before the questions, okay.
Yeah.
The reason that I've put this motion is really in the amenity. It is a residential community where people have purchased houses with a view to having a house next door. And then along comes an amendment, and I understand the need for a medical practitioner in that area. But all of a sudden it changes from being just a straight out residential area to a commercial area, which appears to have continued to grow at greater than. I mean, I'm aware of facilities where there have been doctors in residences, and generally they're very small, they're very quiet, and they don't actually impact on the amenity of the area any more than the house with 2 or 3 people living in it. I think this is somewhat different. My concern is around the wellbeing of the rest of the community and about the fact that members of the community can have done due diligence on what might be in that area in terms of town planning, and then it changes. And it changes significantly, and that's my concern. Not a minor change, but a pretty significant change. So my idea is that if you live in a residential area, you work from 9 to 5, you go home at 5. At 5, you'd be looking to have the normal amenity for a residential area, and that is my reason for pulling the hours back. I know that they probably won't stop at 5 because there'll always be the overlap where people have made bookings and it's gone longer than you would normally expect, but I think it's reasonable to be able to believe if you go to your home in that area at that time that you can have the normal amenity for a residential property.
Thank you. Did you wish to speak to it?
All right, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to support this amendment from Councillor Madden. I think it is a good compromise. I think it is a difficult situation at best. I agree that, yeah, if you're living next door to it, you wouldn't be wanting that sort of traffic, I suppose, until all hours of the evening. I have my own personal reservations about the point C of it, about work being carried out from premises outside the above hours must be for emergency or on-call requirements only, in that in the history of this situation we haven't seen an overly willingness to comply with it in its current format. So that concerns me, that bookings could still just be made, and say, what's to say that it wasn't an emergency? But in saying that, I think this is a compromise, and I'm happy to support that.
Is there a speaker against the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd actually like to speak against this motion. And why I'm speaking against it is I'm thinking about the community here. We've just had a petition lodged here today of 531 names that are in approval of the application MCU 180054. And then in that MCU 0054 is the time stated 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. And one of the last things in this here, the Erangel locality is benefit from the increased services capacity of the medical centre, and we implore Council to approve the application as lodged. So what I'm saying is we've got, when you look at that area there, 531 names of people saying that they would approve, they think the Council are doing the right thing by approving that, and they're residents that live in that area, and they seem to be happier that it's going till 9 o'clock. And there's some people that work and it's the best time for them to go to these facilities. Bunnings is open till 9 o'clock, and it's the best time to go to Bunnings and places like that. And I feel that this is right beside a park. So my thoughts are, I'm listening to what the community is saying here in this petition. I appreciate Councillor Zane by bringing it along here today, because it does recognise that the community are having their say. Thank you.
About this then, I'm only speaking because this petition was brought up, which was tabled earlier. And I was aware of this petition in the doctor's surgery, and I'm aware of the surrounding streets because I represented Division 10 and still do. As mayor, I know the people that live in the surrounding streets, and I know that they're not happy about it. And I'm looking at the addresses here, and it's not the people that are directly affected by it. I know, of course, there are going to be people, particularly the patients of this service, who are happy with the extended hours. But from my view, this is a low-density residential area, and we need to respect that. These people they've made their homes and their lives in these surrounding streets. And to talk about, what they've been through already in terms of the late nights. You can drive past there at 10 o'clock tonight and you'll see people in the parking lot. So I'm voting for this, and if it doesn't get up, and even if it does, I can't support this development application. I'm supporting the amendment.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, can we have some clarification? Sorry,
Yes.
So the next phase of this is voting for the amendment?
Yes, once we'll be discussing the amendment, which is pulling the hours back. And if the amendment is successful, that becomes the motion. It becomes Councillor Madden and Councillor Truscott's motion after that about whether or not we approve it. If the amendment is unsuccessful, it is still Councillor Taylor and Councillor Lewis's motion. And as I understand it, they may wish to make an amendment to theirs. Yes?
So,
Yes, sorry.
sorry, Mr Mayor. So we have an opportunity to vote for this whole project, yes or no, at the end. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's right. Right now, we're just teeing
Correct.
up what we will be, we're just determining what we will be voting on in the end.
So, Mr Mayor, you spoke against it. So,
I-
of the whole thing, is that an opportunity now to speak against it as a whole thing?
It would be easier if we just spoke right now about the hours, which
The
is
hours, okay.
what's before us, the amendments, yes. Yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
I can speak against the amendment, and it's not, I think we are, Councillor Madden and I and Councillor Lewis and most people in this room have similar views on the burden of hours. We just have a different view on the quantum. I believe that 7:30 addresses the concerns that Councillor Chapman has in relation to people being able to access important services within our community after they finish work or at 5 o'clock when they don't feel that they want to take a day off work to go see a doctor. So I think in the environment and the community that we live in, there is a need for community-based medical facilities that go beyond a standard 5 o'clock. We talk about our own divisions, and Councillor Chapman referred to Bunnings, which is open till 9 o'clock. I've gone and seen residents that are literally that their land abuts to Bunnings. So you have low residential areas where there's a commercial business beside them. That's something that we have to balance within this chamber, and I believe that the balance is good when you have a time of 7:30. 9 o'clock is too late. I think it's fair that people get to access their community facilities, and I think this one's an existing one. There's been some problems, but right now what we're here to discuss is whether or not it's appropriate for this development application to go through as it is. The officers have done a lot of work on this. They are experts in their fields, and they've made this recommendation. I'm reluctant to even amend it based on the officers' recommendation because I guess they've done all the groundwork, but in understanding the community need, I believe amending it to a time of 7:30 is more appropriate than 5 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock and 5 o'clock.
Can I just ask a question? The current website, which I'm looking at right now, lists the opening hours of Monday to Friday, 8 to 9 p.m., which are, of course, open much later than that. Saturdays, 8:30 to 5 p.m., and Sundays, 9:30 to 4 p.m. What are their approved hours? Sorry? Is it the current one? Is it? Yes.
Through the chair, the current hours are current business hours. I don't have a copy of the permit, original permit. Just bear with me. Yeah. Okay, councillors, the current hours attachment, and page 237 has the existing approval. The current hours are 8 to 6, Monday to Friday. No work or business carried out from the premise outside the hours or on a Sunday or public holiday. So, sorry, that's Monday to Saturday. So they currently have an approval to 6 p.m.
Yeah, even though they're advertised to 9 p.m. and they go past that, and they're advertised on the website Sunday 9:30 to 4.
Councillor, whilst it's not relevant to the fact and circumstance that stands to this application, councillors would be aware we actually have a order in the court that is a compliance order seeking full compliance with this existing permit that's in place. Council has, because of the previous refusal and mediation, has agreed to hold off on enforcing that pending the outcome of council's consideration of this application.
Yes. Yep. I just had one more question. Page 208, in response to somebody, obviously there were submissions about this and many more when it was previously put. Somebody obviously said, my concerns are excessive noise in a very small street. Now, the response we gave them, that's listed in the agenda, is the conditions proposed to limit the operating hours of the use to no later than 6 p.m. Why would we have said that? So somebody submitted that they're concerned about the noise, and we've told them that the conditions will limit the operating hours to no later than 6 p.m.
Just to add to that, on page 209 in the middle, is, if you see that one, it's occupation noise. That one says 9 p.m.
That's right, yeah.
And the recommendation is that it doesn't go past 9.
Yeah, through the chair, the officer, unfortunately Emily's on leave. I think at some point in time in going through the report and different combinations of it, it has an element of conflict in it, and I acknowledge that. I can't answer the question.
Before I give the mover a right of reply, are there any further speakers or questions to the amendment? Yes?
Yes, just to clarify, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm opposing the amendment, but simply because I'm also going to seek to amend the original motion of 9 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. as I've foreshadowed. And as I understand, if this amendment should fail, then Councillor Taylor, as mover, and I, as seconder, will be content to amend the substantive motion to 7:30. That is done in a spirit of compromise, in that there seems to be some demand for the availability of the service well into the evening, and we do need to balance that demand with the rights of the neighbours. I had another look. I'm familiar with the site. I had another look at it. I drove around the streets this morning. I observed that their illuminated sign on the corner also says Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m, contrary to the existing plan. I appreciate that it may be necessary to take enforcement action to get them to comply. But if my view simply is that 7:30 isn't too late. I have a grandson who, as it happens, turns 3 today, and his bedtime is around about 7:30. So if they finish their work somewhere around there, I don't think it would be too big an imposition on the public, bearing in mind that these matters are always a case of juggling competing interests. So that's my reasons for it, and certainly if the amendment should fail, that's what I'll be seeking to do with the substantive motion.
Are there any further speakers before the right of reply? Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be supporting the amendment. I think it's a common sense amendment, and I fully acknowledge the demand for the services to be held there, but I just think that in that part of the world, in that sort of a residential neighbourhood, that going to those sort of hours is way too late. I think 5 o'clock is the way to go, and I'll be fully supporting it.
Just for clarity, was it 5 o'clock? 6 o'clock. Yeah. Okay, any further speakers? Otherwise, I'll call on Councillor Maddern.
Thank you. I think it's been, the council officer has provided advice that this is basically a confirmation of what is the current hours. I take the point about outside of work hours, but I also note that there's all day Saturday. So I think there are opportunities for people to access medical care outside of their own work hours, given the sheer variety of work hours that we currently experience in our working community. Not everybody works Monday to Friday, and if they do, there is still Saturday, and Saturday extended to 5 o'clock, which is if you work till 12 o'clock, you've still got an opportunity. I really am concerned that once we start extending hours like this, we can well be setting a precedent for other residential areas, and that would concern me greatly.
So if this is the amendment to change the proposed approval. If this fails, it'll revert back to the movers of the original motion. So I'm putting the amendment moved by Councillor Maddern. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All opposed? 4. That's carried 7 to 4. that becomes the motion. You wish, unless there was, at any point, other people can move amendments, but...
The mover and the seconder of the amendment are now the...
That's right. Yeah. Councillor Truscott. Okay. Did you wish to speak to your... Yeah. Okay. Councillor Everett has questions.
Yeah, officers, number of GPs, number of parks. We had discussed this on Monday, and we established that there were 7 GPs, which would probably have 6 support staff, which would turn into 13 people on the site. There's 20 car parks on the site, located on the site, so we're still going to have overflow on the street. They get a full waiting room. There's going to be a fair bit of traffic congestion in that area in a local street.
Through the councillor, through the chair. The approval and proposal is to condition to limit it to 4 practitioners at any one time, and that's a condition on the approval. Through the current operations, and councillors are aware of the scale of the current operation, the car parking included in this proposal was actually assessed by a traffic engineer as part of the court process, and it complies with the current requirements of the planning scheme for the area and the provisions that are there. During the surveys that have been completed, there was a maximum of 17 vehicles at any one time over a week's survey. So when you look at 1, the planning scheme, 2, the limitations through the conditions of the practitioners, and the current traffic generations by there, then the current provision, or what is proposed, is satisfactory to meet what is considered to be the general operation of the facility. Like any facility that we provide car park in the standards provide. There is potential for peak at certain times, flu season, or whatever the case may be, for some overflow, but that's no different to retail shopping at Christmas or any other event.
Sorry, you said so there was 17 cars when the survey was undertaken. So that, on average, is 4 customer cars at any one time, or 4 patient cars at any one time. That seems to be a bit skinny on a practice that size. Like, it doesn't add up to me.
17 at any one time was the maximum located there.
Yeah, but as 7 GPs with 6 staff is 13. That's only 4 cars at any one time with a waiting room full of people. It's a pretty busy place.
Are there any further questions or speakers?
Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak against this. The spirit of our policy in homegrown businesses is to have low impact on the community. And I see a number of smaller businesses, accountants, hairdressers, that go to a long degree to comply to our policies and procedures. We have a business that could have easily set up literally across the road, and we wouldn't be here now. And unfortunately, the applicant has had a history of not complying to conditions and virtually flaunting conditions over a number of years. Well, I can't support this. This should have never be allowed in this area, and it shouldn't be allowed in that area.
Any further speakers? Yep.
I will be speaking for it. I'm comfortable with the amendments, despite the fact that I would have been happy to see them a little bit more flexible. I guess what we have here is an officer's recommendation in order to deal with a very, I guess, sensitive issue, not only for the community, but for the people who utilise this service. And we talk about the impact on the community. The impact on the community that uses this service would be significant if we didn't approve it. Compliance aside, that's a matter for council to determine once this application has been approved. Or otherwise, but in my mind, there is a need for a service particularly in our community areas to access medical support. I believe this achieves that. It's an existing business, and I will be supporting it on that basis.
I'm speaking against this this motion, this application. I don't think that this application fits within our planning scheme. This land is zoned low-density residential. which supports non-residential activities that are of a small scale, low intensity, and are compatible with the local residential amenity. Under the Business Use Code, it prescribes that business uses do not detract from the amenity of the area in which the use is located. This use is located within Hammond Street in Urangan, an established street. I know the residents of Hammond Street. I know of the people who use Judge Milne Park, and nobody ever imagined that 97 Hammond Street was going to become a parking lot. Nobody ever imagined, even when this medical centre was approved in 2010, and I think they stretched the bounds of what they were going to approve, and they went way beyond it in terms of what you'll see on their signs, on their website right now, which is, of course, breaching their existing approval. I don't think that this can fit within the planning scheme for low-density residential, and I don't think anyone here would want to see a block in our street turned into a parking lot like this is. This will be a continual noise of people coming and going to their 10 or 15-minute consultations. It's not, as the low-density residential zoning requires, small scale, low intensity, and it is certainly not compatible with the local residential amenity, so I'll be voting against it. Any further speakers? Councillor Lewis.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm voting for it, and I appreciate all that you and Councillor Light have said, but I'm voting for it simply because we're stuck with what was approved in 2010, and it seems to me that this proposal will, in some respects, ameliorate the issues that have arisen because of that approval, in that it will provide some additional car parking. There are conditions in relation to acoustic screening and so on. It'll get the car parking into an ordered car park, and to that extent reduce the amount of parking that's on the streets. And there were about 6 or 7 cars parked on the street when I drove past it at 8:45 this morning when I had a look at it. So it will, I think, in fact, improve the amenity and regularise what's happening there at the moment. I appreciate that part of the problem with what's happening is non-compliance, and there is an argument that one doesn't have to bend over backwards to accommodate people who are breaching their regulations. But nonetheless, on balance, and honest and fair minds can differ on this, but on balance, I think this proposal will make the situation better rather than worse, and on that basis I'm prepared to approve it, notwithstanding that I have the same misgivings that the other speakers have in relation to the general concept.
On Councillor Maddern, were there any further speakers? Oh, Councillor, sorry, yep.
Mr Mayor, if I may, I'd like to just sort of add to what Councillor Lewis has. This has been an element that officers have been dealing with for several years now, and it is through a process of trying to get what is existing there working in the best effective manner while mitigating against any of those impacts. The planning scheme does, one, envisage encroachments of commercial and other activities into residential areas, and we have churches, childcare centres, corner stores, Hoffy's open to 8 o'clock up the road with a car park, generating huge amounts of traffic at night, and medical centres. And we have medical centres in residential areas because they're catering for a particular, with Urangan, with approximately 10,000 people, 26% of the population of Urangan are over the age of 60. I think there's 40% over the age of 40. The planning scheme also envisages that there's a need to service those people, and whilst there is other land there, is that land readily available, developed to facilitate that? And it's not. So we have tried to get a balance here between what is a community, demonstrated through a community need through what's there, what's already existence, the decision's been made in the past to actually establish and get that there, and get a balance through conditions and controls, including a court order there that ensures that not only if this approval is granted, they actually comply and this thing is actually built. So the court order says you will have this thing constructed, the car parking, landscaping, operational and functional, including those upgrades to the street, pedestrian access and mobility around through the intersection of Tony Street and Boat Harbour Drive. To get a balanced outcome at the end of this, we'll get something that functions better, meets that service to the community and has the minimal impact upon the residents.
If there's no more speakers or questions, I'll call on Councillor Madden.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think at this point in time, it's appropriate to acknowledge the staff and the work that they've done around a very difficult issue. It is a difficult issue, and I take the Mayor's position, but I'm a bit like Councillor Lewis. It's trying to get the best possible outcome with a set of circumstances which we inherited and we just need to deal with. I believe this probably gives us the best. I was terribly concerned about the hours, and to bring it back to what is the existing hours of business, I think is fair and reasonable. And on that basis, I'm happy to put this motion forward to the councillors with a view to trying to settle this matter.
The amended motion, this is for the approval as per amended with the hours. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that it? 7? Oh, sorry, Zane. Oh, no, sorry. No, raise your hands again, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? It should be 5 if my math's right. Yes, that's carried 6 to 5. I call it division. Yeah. Okay, a division is called by Councillor Light. All in favour, please stand. Sorry? What? Yeah, I got sunburned. Councillor Lewis, Councillor Maddern, Councillor Hanson, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Chapman and Councillor Sanderson. Yep. All opposed, please stand. That's Councillor Light, Councillor Truscott, Councillor Everard and Councillor O'Keefe. Thank you. The next item is item 10.3.7, Community Grants Review. That's pages 244 to 370. Okay, the officer's recommendation is on page 245. Is there a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Everard, is there a seconder? Councillor Maddern? Were there any speakers? Did you want to speak to it first? Or, yeah?
Look, I welcome this this initiative being rolled out and look forward to a more streamlined process for staff. There's quite a considerable amount of work goes into it, to the grants, and sooner we get it up online and make it a bit easier for everyone involved, it will be a much better outcome.
Yes, I think it brings clarity, it brings some kind of consistency, and it brings, hopefully, an ease of use, although my husband, who has a love-hate relationship with computers, may well disagree. I do draw attention to the community consultation that will be carried out as part of this process, because there are members in our community who don't have access to computers, or there are members in our community who possibly have got access to computers but have a love-hate relationship with them and don't quite know how to make it work. So I think it's very important, and I really do commend the staff for proposing a full consultation process and assistance to those applying for grants. I think it's a very important part of this process.
Speakers or questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. The next item is item 11.1, Notice of Repeal of Motion, Harvey Bay Transit Centre. That's page 371. Did you wish to speak to this, Councillor Chapman?
No, just that we're going to rescind this motion because the university, we've spoke to the university and they feel that they do not want the transit centre in that area, and so that's why it's to be removed. Thank you.
Assume we need a seconder for rescission notice. Yeah, is that Councillor? Yeah, Councillor Maddern seconding that. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Chapman? Any further, Councillor Maddern?
Yeah, just to bring a little bit of clarity about it, by rescinding this motion, we actually open up opportunities for further discussion around where the transit centre might be. So we're not locked in. This resolution locks us into a certain approach. I think by rescinding the motion, it allows much more flexibility, much more consultation around a future transit centre might look like and where it might be located. And for that reason, I'm very happy to support the rescission.
Yes. Were there any speakers or questions? Councillor Taylor.
Yes, it's, through the chair to the CEO. What action, under obviously being a rescission motion to repeal motion cannot be repealed if it's been acted on. What action has been undertaken in this matter so far? And is it appropriate that an officer should not provide a report of some sort to go along with this rather than just a rescission?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a good question. In terms of action that's been taken so far, I don't think there has been any action that commits us to this process. There have been discussions, as I understand it, with DTMR in relation to funding, and I believe there's been approval to provide funding for a study into transit centre at this location. And I might, that's to the best of my knowledge, but I might ask John to talk to that very shortly if he has, or Jamie, if they have further information. In relation to notice of repeal of motion, possibly in future, yeah, we should provide a report to provide the executive staff's position with respect to the motion, what implications are. I don't see any major implications with this. The biggest implication will be the availability of grant funds to consider to do the design and consider building the transit centre at that particular location. We'll lose those funding. We'll lose that funds, obviously, but there may be an opportunity to apply for funding for an alternate location.
I understand you say you don't foresee any other issue, but therein lies the problem, is that we have a repeal motion that could in fact be conflicting with our standing orders because we don't know to what extent action has been taken. My view would be that because it's such an important matter, because it's a matter of council that was dealt with in 2016, you can't simply put a repeal motion in for such a matter. It should be accompanied with a report from the executive so that we can be properly informed. I have been in situations, and cat registration comes to mind, where we make decisions based on what we think we know, and then we end up having to retract again. This is not an urgent matter that would need to require a decision today. Well, or then it should come back to a special meeting. I could not possibly, based on a paragraph, seek to rescind a $250,000 project. It's just simply not enough time. As a matter of process, you should have some sort of report.
Yeah. In terms of the standing orders, I mean, you can move objectionable business, but notice of rescission is sections 32 and it doesn't require a report.
It certainly says, it could be, it's probably under the act. My apologies. I'll get the act up. Someone's got it in hand.
I mean, the only requirement under our standing orders is 5 days' notice, which I understand has been complied with.
Yep.
So, Mr Mayor, if I can just further respond to Councillor Taylor. So, my understanding, what this means is that we lose the grant funding that's currently made available for this particular location, and the work that we have done in terms of planning and design for this particular location is essentially written off. But Jamie looks like he might be able to provide further information. But I believe that's the extent of the impacts of this decision, but it does allow us to consider any other location.
Did you, wait, just before Councillor Chapman, or did you have something to add, or should we go to whose answer?
No,
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, just a clarification here. We were looking at the CBD, the area of the university and Pyalba itself. And it was highlighted to the university that we're looking at putting a transit centre in this area. And they completely told us they did not want a transit centre within their university. They didn't want people from out of town hopping off right at their university. And this transit centre, as it was sort of known to be a massive building with where buses and everything can come, when it was investigated, it's only a bus shelter. It's a bus shelter on the side of the road. So by saving $50,000, there has been some money, I think, spent on road counts and different things. Now those road counts they are information that the council can hold. But why keep going down the track on a project that someone that's heavily involved with the university as they want to grow, and when the university grows, they'll grow our economy, they'll bring people into the region, they'll bring them from out of this country into here. If they don't want it there, why still spend money? And this is the reason that I brought this, sending this motion up, was to stop the spending of money on something that they are one of the major importers do not want to have there. And so this gives us the ability now that we may be able to look at other areas, but for a transit centre, but at the moment it's not wanted there, so I feel let's just stop.
Yeah. And I think I know what Councillor Taylor was referring to, not specifically in relation to rescission motion, but standing order, if you want to go to it, is 13.4. Matters or motions relating to but not limited to amending and changing disbursement of funds, budgets, capital work priorities and policy decisions will be subject to a council report prior to any council resolution.
No, that's not it. There's a section in relation to repealing. Even in the notice of repeal, it refers to section 451, subsection 1 of the Local Government Act 1993. That is an old piece of legislation, and that section doesn't exist. But I'm trying to find where it talks about repeals in the actual act.
Well, perhaps if I continue, I think it needs to be delayed till we have a report. Matters or motions, which this is, relating to but not limited to amending and changing disbursements of funds, which this is, budgets, which this is, capital work priorities, which this most clearly is, and policy decisions, which this is a very big policy decision, will be subject to a council report prior to any council resolution.
Yeah, it's not what I was referring to, but...
So do you, on my, like, can I move it, lay on the table, or?
Well,
yeah.
The procedural motion.
Yeah, some...
Move a procedural motion that lay on the table to the council until a report's been provided.
So there's a report at next meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, did you wish to move that, Councillor Everard? Oh, yeah.
Just listen to what you
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. I was at the, I'm part of that steering committee, and I agree that I don't think this is a good site for the transit centre. But, you know, our standing orders, we do need to report on it.
so I'd like to propose that motion.
No, I just think that we're spending money.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, I know you were there, the CEO was there.
I have it, Councillor Everard.
The university clearly said, why spend money on a report that, when I'm saying stop the spend altogether for something that's not required. And if we do go ahead with the report, I hope the cost of it is kept to a minimum, because it's clearly stated that ask the university, they do not want it.
Can I make...
Is there a point of order?
There is a point of order in that the purpose, and I believe that this needs a report. And one of the reasons being is exactly what we're seeing here today, is we're hearing people talk about, we have spoken to and we have done this and we are aware, yet I'm not aware and I'm part of that we. And if you put a report in it with a document, then we all become aware and we're all making a decision based on the same information, not what you have, not what the mayor has, but what we all have, and we're informed. It needs a report as in line with the standing orders.
Okay. So just before you go, is there a seconder for the motion?
So for the rescission motion?
Yeah.
I was the seconder.
Okay. I understand.
And Dennis moved it.
Yeah, but Councillor Everard has a point of order? Oh,
Yeah,
no, a
procedural motion. Yeah, look, I'd like to move a procedural motion that this report lay on the table until there's a report prepared for presentation at the next council meeting.
No seconder required.
Yeah, and it'll be immediately put. So that's that it will be, so can you read that again? That it be
This matter lay on the table until the report be provided, or report is provided to council at the next ordinary meeting.
Okay. I'll put that under the standing orders that it will not be debated and will be immediately put to the vote by the chairperson. I'll put that motion. All in favour of the procedural motion? All opposed? That's carried unanimously. So we'll be discussing this again at the next meeting. Okay, the next item is 12.1, question on notice response regarding a tree falling into Yalula Lagoon. This is page 372. Did you wish this? Are you moving this, Councillor Truscott? Sure. Is there a seconder? Yes. Councillor Everard. Did you wish to speak to it?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it is a bit of an unsightly thing, but from the advice I've received, it's not really in the best method to remove it because it might actually cause more damage to the bank. So, happy with that outcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Any further speakers or questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour? All opposed? That's carried unanimously. We're now into general business. Is there any items of general business? Yes, Councillor Light.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to inform the chamber that we've got a fundraiser in the Torquay area this Saturday at 9 o'clock for the Drought Angels. A number of businesses have made a contribution to that running of that event, meaning no costs will be involved. All money collected will go straight to the Drought Angels. We are an official fundraiser event for them. And a number of businesses have donated things, including I'd like to thank the Torquay Progress Association on donating $1,000 already towards it. So we've got a barbecue, we've got a lot of stock from the shops that will be going out, and all that money that takes from that stock will go straight as the fundraiser. There will be nothing taken out of it. So come along, it should be a great day, 9 o'clock, between the Crystal Shop and the post office, opposite the markets area. So just thought I'd let everyone know.
Excellent. Were there any further items of general business? Yes, Councillor Chapman.
Mr. Mayor, I went to Palm Lakes on last Friday night. They'd like to thank you for your donation of a couple $100 that you donated towards it for the prostate cancer. Oh, yes. The little community of Palm Lakes itself raised $8,000 for awareness of prostate cancer in one little evening. So the Fraser Case Council, we actually sponsored. We were a major sponsor. We had a banner and everything up showing that. And also the Mayor of Gympie also thanked myself to thank the other firemen that actually travelled from this region down to the Waluga bushfires and worked on that. Last Thursday there was up to 44 crews from Brisbane right through this region to further north, and so thank you.
Thank you. Any further items of general business? If not, Councillor Everard has advised that he moves that we go into confidential under sections 2751H and 2751E. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Light. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. We've now moved into confidential. Yeah, moving to item 15.1. Can we just do it in the order? Okay, native title, this, page 375, this officer's recommendation is moved by Councillor Everard, seconded by Councillor Mattern. Are there any speakers? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? All opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 15.2, page 408.
Mr. Mayor, it was remiss of me.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
But I need to declare, and I think I'll call it a real conflict of interest in this matter.
Material.
Yeah, I've got it up on the screen. Yeah, that's all right. The nature of my interest is that I have a self-managed superannuation fund, which is the owner of a property that fronts Walker Street in the section subject to this contract. In the event that the upgrade of the road may or may not enhance the value of my property in the super fund, I may or may not stand to receive either a benefit or a loss. And on that basis, I propose leaving the room.
Okay.
Done.
declared
Yep.
a material conflict of interest.
Yes, that's right, yep. Okay, the officer's recommendation on pages 408 and 409 is moved by councillor Truscott, seconded by councillor Chapman. Were there any speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour? All opposed? That's carried unanimously, 10-0. And
This is upgrade the road in front of the new rifle crop.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Yeah. Well, tell me it's preliminary works. Dennis? Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
Okay. The item 15.3, page 413. The officer's recommendation is slightly amended by councillor Chapman and seconded by councillor Taylor to make it a non-confidential.
Yeah, be deemed a public
Yeah.
document.
Were there any speakers for this matter? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. The next item, 15.4, is similarly amended. That's page 425. And the motion moved by councillor Madden, seconded by councillor Everard. On, yeah, page so on 426, item, the first leg of the recommendation is changed that it be a public document. I had you down as moving that one before. In Madden's. Yeah. So when were you saying, when was that changed? We discussed that. Yeah. It'll be the same. There was even less of a, is that right? There's even less of a concern about that one being confidential.
Yeah, quite comfortable.
Yep. Are there any speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. The next item, 15.5. Yes?
One thing going back on that.
Yep.
My thoughts are that is like the management side of it, that second one, and I think that needs to be in confidential, but not the first one, like as we've gone through. It's too low. It's, yeah, I know, but I just thought about that as it was going through, and I meant to
Okay.
say it. That's more the management side of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and I think community would want to have an understanding of how this project's going to be managed. Yeah.
Okay, the trustee lease, the Burm Recreation Reserve. The motion as amended by councillor Hanson and seconded by councillor Mattern is 1 to 5 plus 6? 6 and 7. The recommendation only has 5. Yep. So adding 6 and 7. Are there any speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.2.1, councillor Taylor is leaving the room. Okay, this recommendation is over page 477 to 478. It's moved by,
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just before we commence, just for the purposes of the minutes, I just note that I think we've declared that in confidential for the wrong reason. Marlene, that should be declared for reasons E, which is about contracts to be considered by it, not for matters that would prejudice the interests of local government or someone.
that's true.
So this is for item 16.2.1, the late supplementary items. Should be 275.1E.
Yep.
Sorry, Mr Mayor.
So do we need to amend the motion for that?
Not the
Not
motion,
the actual motion,
just
yeah.
for the minutes, I think.
Yeah.
We declared for both of those reasons to go into
Yeah.
confidential, but just so we
Yes,
tie
that's right.
the appropriate
Yes, it's
reason for
contract.
that
Yeah.
matter.
Okay, this is moved by councillor Everard, seconded by councillor Lewis. Do you wish to speak to this? No. Are there any speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All opposed? 2. That's carried 8 to 2.
James.
Division's called by councillor Hanson. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Yeah.
You never die one.
Light, Truscott, Lewis, Mattern, Seymour. Yeah. All opposed, please stand. That's Hanson and Chapman. Okay, that concludes the business. There were no further business items. Going once?
I just want to say something.
Okay.
No, close the meeting.
Okay, accordingly, that's the finalization of the agenda items. I close the meeting at 1:18.